Welcome to my channel. Today I have a quick video about the Unearthly Cosmetics Don't Be Jelly palette. This was sent to me in PR by Unearthly Cosmetics and I may or may not have an affiliate code. Not sure, to be honest with you. I did at one point. I never talk about Unearthly, so I never get any like referral sales. I thought I was taken off the PR list because the owner put out a statement saying she lost all her PR contacts. Then out of nowhere I got the shipping notification for this palette, so here I am making a video. You may be able to use my code SEEKINGSHIFTS, but I would recommend that you watch this video all the way through and check out other reviews, especially from people who did not receive this in PR, before you make a decision about purchasing this palette. I never want you to use just my content as like a guide because A, I'm biased, and B, I have very specific tastes and preferences that may not align with yours. But without any further ado, let's go ahead and get into this. I have swatches, a few comparisons, and then 2 looks and my final first impressions. Okay, these are the shades on the left half of the palette. First we have Luminescence, which is a multi-chrome. It's a purple that shifts gold, green, teal. Sea Urchin is a blackened, smoky plum purple. Aquatic is a semi-sheer, sparkly blue that has flecks of purple. Sea Space is a deep, sparkly blue that flips to a bit of purple. Lagoon is a very opaque and saturated cobalt blue, I guess would be the right way to describe it. And then Salty is an iridescent that shifts from teal to blue. Okay, here are the shades on the right side of the palette. Seafoam is a pastel matte minty green. Brine is a semi-sheer sparkly mint green with some different flecks of gold. Jellyfish is a semi-sheer lilac pastel purple. Sea Star is a very saturated royal purple. Coral is a mid-tone vibrant brick red. And then Hydrospace is a multi-chrome that shifts from blue to pink to gold to green, and it has a sheer base to a few of the shades in this palette, so I wanted to include comparisons in case you're only interested in those certain shades. Sea Space is quite similar to both Multiverse and Wormhole from Terra Moons. Multiverse is more similar in terms of tone, but the texture is quite different. Multiverse is a lot flakier, it has a larger particle size. Sea Space has a much smaller particle size and is very hard to pick up with a brush, and it gets hard pan immediately if you use your finger, which I will get into more later. Salty is pretty much indistinguishable from Clionadh Glow and Devinah Boom Sour. These are both very common types of iridescent pigments, so a lot of brands have their own version of this. Okay, for Hydrospace, I included the Cosmos from Terra Moons, and then Stellar Apotheosis from Terra Moons, and Takeover from Shine by SD. Those two are dupes, by the way, if you can't tell. So I would say those two are closer to Hydrospace over the Cosmos. They have warmer shifts. As you can see, it's more of like a pink to orange to gold, where the Cosmos is more of like a pink to gold to green. Hydrospace has a much lighter base and smaller particle size, so it's not going to reflect light in the same way or appear as vibrant. For Luminescence, I compared it to Shine by ST Glam Rush and Devinah Nocturne Ash. Neither of these are as close as I thought they would be, but I think they are, as Faces by Gina would say, reasonable person dupes, especially Nocturne Ash. Okay, so for the looks, I'm going to apply this NYX Ultimate Shadow and Liner Primer to both of my eyes. This is pretty much what I've been using every day. Trying to get through this so I can try a few of the primers you guys have recommended to me. Like, I know someone recommended the Ulta primer and the NARS one. Anyway, so I'm just tapping it on gently with my fingers, a small amount. I'm going to start off with the shade Aquatic. I'm going in with the Rephr 1 brush, and I'm going to use that to apply a wash all over the first 2/3 of my eyelids. This is typically how I'll start to build a look. I'll do a wash of shimmer all over my lid and then apply more sparkly or multi-chromatic shades on top of that. This shade was a lot more hard pressed and sheer than I initially realized, so I'm building it up a bit more because I wanted to have a bit of a blue base underneath the shade I'm putting on top. Once I was reasonably happy with that, I went in with the shade Sea Space with the same brush, and I started to build up some depth in my outer corner. And you may be wondering why I didn't go in with a glitter primer for these shades. It's because I don't like to use glitter primers most of the time. I find they don't lend themselves well to the types of looks I like to do. I prefer a more scattered PC dimensional finish, and I find when I use a glitter primer, I always end up with a very foiled metallic sheen, and it's not my journey. Now I'm going in with one of the multi-chromes from Hydrospace, and I'm applying it over that base I created with the first shimmer. I used my finger because, as a lot of you know, that's how I typically like to apply multichromes, but I realized it was not picking up at all with my finger, so I went back in with that refer brush and started to build it up again. So this was starting to turn out a little differently than I anticipated, but I did like how the flecks from Aquatic were showing through. Now I'm going in with a small blending brush with the shade Sea Urchin. I'm going to apply that to my outer corner, completely out of frame, so sorry, but I'm just packing it onto my outer corner and kind of blending it into those shimmers. Here I am using the viewfinder as my mirror once again because I just can't unlearn that. Obviously, you know I had to try out this iridescent, so I'm putting Salty all over my inner corner and like kind of blending it up into the crease. I'm using a really small detailed brush to do that. The shade actually packs a lot more of a blue punch than that other shimmer, Aquatic. Okay, here's the final product for my first look. I'm pretty happy with how this came out. There were a lot of twists and turns along the way. Things didn't go how I expected them to, but I'm pleased with the overall outcome. The multichrome is not showing up as shifty as it would on its own, and that's because that base underneath. However, I really like the effect that the flecks of Aquatic showing through created. It's giving like very ethereal, almost deconstructed in a way, and I am really happy with it. Okay, for the next look, I'm starting with the shade Seafoam with a kind of flat blending brush, and I'm going to start by packing that on my inner corner. I do really enjoy this matte formula. I find it to be quite easy to work with. For reference, my favorite matte formulas are Viseart and Natasha Denona. So I'm continuing to pack that onto my inner corner. I found it to be pretty easy to build on itself. Next, I'm going to go in with Seafoam again, and I'm going to mix it with Lagoon to create almost a gradient of sorts. And I'm going in my crease here, and then with whatever's left on the brush, I'm bringing it down to my main lid area. And again, I really have nothing but good things to say about the matte formula. It's only the shimmers I've had trouble with, but these blended really easily, and they were quite pigmented, but not in a way that makes them difficult to work with. Like, as you guys know, I'm really not that good at doing eyeshadow, especially with mattes. Like, it's not my forte. So I just packed on some Lagoon to continue that gradient, and now I'm going in with Sea Star with that same smaller blending brush, and I'm going to build that on my outer corner. So I'm following that same motion where I take the most pigment and pack it into the outer corner, and then whatever is left on the brush, I work into the other shades in my main lid area. And this creates more of a seamless blend and also a almost watercolor type transition on the main lid part. I'm not too concerned because I'm going to put a shimmer over top of all that, but it's nice to have a good base. Once I feel like I have enough pigment on there, I'm taking a blank fluffy blending brush and kind of just really blending everything together just to create, like I said, more of a soft watercolor type transition. Okay, so once I decided that looked good enough, I started to go in with my finger with the shade Luminescent, and I realized that was a fatal error. So then I kind of just tried to rub it away, and I'm now going in with Fahrenheit Pixie Epoxy, which is my glitter primer of choice. And I'm tapping, what I usually do is I put it on the back of my hand, and then I use that and tap a very, very tiny amount on my eyelid. I give that about 10 seconds to get tacky, and then I'm going back in with Luminescence and using my finger in patting motions to apply it. And again, I wasn't thrilled with the experience of using my finger to apply this, so I actually ended up going in with a kind of flat tapered brush and applying it on the rest of my eyelid to see if I like that better. And then I'm going around the edges to diffuse it out and blend it into those mattes. To finish this look off, I'm taking that same flat brush with the shade Brine, and I'm going to put that in my inner corner to brighten up and add some more green to the look. The shade is very sheer in the same way that Aquatic is, so I'm going back in with more, and then I'm going to follow the same technique where I kind of blend it into the crease to create a more seamless transition between the shimmers. Here's the final product of the second look. I'm pretty happy with how it came out. I think the shimmer Luminescence paired really well with that matte gradient I created. It did cover it up a little bit more than I expected, but still I think you can see it peeking through. Let me know which of the two looks is your favorite. I think the first one's my favorite. I'd like to preface my first impressions by saying that I've never personally placed an order with Unearthly Cosmetics. Any products I've tried from them have been introduced to me through PR, so I cannot speak to their customer service, shipping, or any of that. I'd like to create a constructive environment in the comments where people share their experiences, and that way if someone's considering purchasing from the brand, they can hear from multiple sources what the experience is like to buy from the brand. Now on to my first impressions of the actual palette with that in mind. I think the mattes are fantastic. They're pigmented, easy to build, easy to blend. So that's half the palette that I really enjoy. The shimmers, however, are a big issue. In my understanding, this is actually a remastered version of a palette that once existed. I don't know what that palette was like. I've never tried it. I think you can get the shimmers to work if you use a more coarse tapered brush to pick them up, and if you don't use your fingers at all. Like the moment your finger touches that shadow, it gets hard pan. And I'm showing you some slow motion, really close up footage so you can see what the pans look like after I swatch and then use them in a look. The hard pan is real. So like I said, it is possible to make them work. However, I don't think you should have to change how you do your eyeshadow to make a palette work. To me, that's not a good palette. And I always use my fingers to apply eyeshadow, and then I'll use a brush to kind of like diffuse or blend it out. So for me, this doesn't work. It's not a good palette for me. Having said that, I don't want this to make you think that anyone who enjoyed the palette or had a really good experience is lying, because there are so many things that can account for varying user experiences. For example, that shade Multiverse from Terra that I showed you earlier in the comparisons, I freaking love that shade, but a lot of people don't like it because it's very flaky and chunky. In fact, one of my Instagram friends called it a hazard to society. So I think maybe we should just give people a little bit more grace, not be so quick to point fingers. But anyway, I hope this video was helpful. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. I have a lot of videos coming up soon, so I will see you then. Bye.